Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is August 14th, 2022, and I am your co-host, the Fat Wizard, joined today by...
Lobos,
and today we're taking a look at Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus on the PS2, released in North America, of course, September 23rd, 2002. So we're actually a little bit early here, maybe call it like a month and some change, but that's okay. As long as it's the same year, we're all good there, right, Lobos? We're not going to technicalities here.
Yeah, well, actually, now that I think about it, let's shut it down now. Let's just...
Okay, all right.
Delete.
All right. So this one, this is one of those that I've always wanted to play. I actually had played the demo, and I was remembering to myself, why did I stop? I played the demo, and I was like, I'm not going to play it. And I remembered instantly when I started picking up this game why I put it down. It's because the turning of the camera, I just wanted to make a note of this real quickly.
Yeah.
The turning of the camera is backwards what I'm used to.
Right.
And there's no option to invert it. So if you move your analog stick to the right, the camera moves to the left, it blew my mind. Like it's hard
revolutionary,
to
literally, just because it revolves.
Revolutionary. I love it.
Nice.
I got it. Yeah. So I think that's the only reason why. But now we had this on the slate. We're like, all right, I'm gonna power through it. And man, I'm really glad I did. It reminds me a lot of the Ratchet, the early Ratchet games. You always think about, like, you've got the Jak and Daxter, you got the Ratchet and Clank, and you get the Sly Cooper. I always, and for whatever reason, Ratchet just kind of always was the one that lasted. But Lobos, what did you think of this game?
Yeah, I never played. Honestly, I've never played any of those 3 game series.
Oh, well,
yeah,
you gotta write a note to do Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, but I had a pretty good idea of what to expect going in, and I always just thought of Sly Cooper as the same thing but stealthy. And there's definitely stealth elements to it, but I was personally pleasantly surprised that it wasn't too, it didn't force you too much to do that. It just kind of, if you get detected, it's a little bit harder for you to do things. But I was really surprised when it popped up and said Sucker Punch, because I was like, what? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like reaching back there. And I don't know how long they've been around, but I did not think it was.
Yeah, they've been around since early PS. You know what? I don't know if this is their first game or not. I should have researched that, but this is the first one that I know them for. Yeah,
that's awesome. And man, the whole game we're starting off with my entire take on it, basically, but it felt very polished, and the visuals, especially considering PS2, like the style is so good. I think it just it held up really well.
Yeah, I should look this up because I want to get their name right. But this was one of the artists on there was Peter Chen or Cheng. I can't remember which one it is. Or is it Chan? Anyway, he did a lot of really great work for Full Throttle, Psychonauts,
nice.
Grim Fandango. So like really, really in my mind when I see the art, it's very cool blues and very kind of cel shaded. Like really, really harkens back to the games he's worked on. So that was really cool to see. Peter Chan. I just want to make sure that I got that name right. So the artist was Peter Chan. And you can see it all over this game. Is you got the nice silhouettes of characters. You got the dark blues and dark grays. You got the foreground and the backgrounds that are all blending really nicely together. Just fantastic.
Yeah. And then they've got these little cinematics that are like almost kind of comic booky or like detective but cartoon. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. So there's kind of 5 episodes and then a prologue. So we just finished the prologue and we break into this. I think she's a raccoon or a fox. I think it's a fox. Yeah. Carmelita, I think her name is.
Carmelita Fox.
Yeah, and she is a detective or a police or an officer. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, you break into her office and you steal, I guess, a file or something based on this crime syndicate that you learn about, who has stolen your family's heirloom called the Thievius Raccoonus. And this is, I got crack up when I think about this. This is like all of the secret ninja, spy, stealth assassin
spy
techniques.
Arts,
yeah.
From, hundreds of years based on like what we learn and what sorts of techniques we get. But yeah, it's like, I guess at this point in his life or whatever, when it was stolen, he hadn't learned it quite yet. And maybe because they talk about how his dad, I think his dad was murdered and they stole the book.
Like
which is crazy. And then, but like, they stole the book, and maybe he was like just about to come of age and learn all the tricks in the book, but then it was taken away from him. So.
Yeah, so he has to go on a mission to recover the 5 pages and then put down the baddies. And you only know the first one. It's this frog dude. And here's what I really love. Every start of every of these episodes, it has this... it says like starring Sly Cooper in, and then this one's called like a Tide of Terror. But it's like, I don't know how to describe the scene, but I guess like early morning or Saturday morning cartoons might make sense, right?
Yeah.
Or no, it's more of like a pulpy thing, right?
I think it's like old detective kind of shows where they have this splash screen that's like, here's this person in this and this sort of episode name or whatever. Yeah. But it's very cool, stylized, and what I really enjoyed is they set up the backstory for each villain before you go into the episode, and it's short, but it's like well thought out, and it gives you a lot of context for what's going on.
And I think most of the villains kind of have a sob story about why they are villains.
Yeah.
My favorite we'll get to is the junkyard dog in the second episode here. But the first one, like we talked about, there's a frog. I actually don't remember his backstory. We just saw it, but we were chatting. So he has a top hat. So I don't know. He's a frog with style. Gotta love that though. And so this first level of, let's talk about the structure a little bit of how these levels work, because when you go into a new episode, there's always this intro mission, and we're on this intro mission now, but your car kind of zooms in, and your van driven by Murray. We should talk about Murray in a bit. Murray is driving your vehicle, and then you hop out and you do a mission, and once you complete this mission, you go into this hub world. And this hub world generally has, like 7 levels?
7 areas.
7 areas,
It reminded me of something like Banjo-Kazooie, where there's kind of an overworld, but then you go into like a little cave, like a side cave, and then it's another like fully isolated area that your goal is to acquire a key, and then those keys will unlock your progression through the overall overworld until you reach the boss.
Yeah. And I think you need all the keys to go to the boss. And each of the levels has 4 main, I want to call them main levels because those are the ones with all the collectibles. And then there's 3 generally like 3 minigame levels. We're going to skip those out entirely. They're kind of fun, but...
we're not going to talk about the race here. We're not going to.
We're not. We can talk about the race here. Yeah, we can certainly talk about that. But we were going to skip all of those on the video just because I wanted to cram all the levels in.
Sure.
So we're already running over on time for this. So, so we are entering a level called a Cunning Disguise. This one's fun because there's a little barrel there, and you put the barrel around you, and you hold it up kind of like a pirate. If you're thinking about a pirate trying to sneak around, he's just got a barrel. He's got it around his midsection. Yeah. And this is the first time you learn, you're introduced to this mechanic of this like thing, this barrel that you can hide from security lasers on, security lights, and also there's these globes that'll open up and shoot plungers at you or something like that.
I think they're darts. I think they're darts.
Okay.
Because they like they get stuck on the.
Oh yeah. Okay, I see. I see now. And if you don't have that barrel on, you just get hit by the darts. And you're for the most part, one shot will kill you in this game. Getting hit by one thing will kill you. You can get a horseshoe, which is kind of like an extra hit there, but it's kind of you're not always going to have one because you basically have to collect 100 gold pieces to get one.
You can find them out in the level too. And one interesting thing is it not only prevents you from like a hit that would kill you, but also if you were to fall off a cliff. Like they're very generous with that. It like kind of jumps you back up to where you fell and goes, all right, give it another try.
Now, Lobos, I know that you kind of just tore through this game, exploring the crit path. But one of the things that this game has is every one of these main levels we're talking about has these little bottles. And as you smack these bottles, they have, I think, writing in those bottles. And then we collect all the bottles. Your friend Bentley will be able to decipher the vault combination for the level. And so each of these levels has a vault, and when you open up the vault, you get power-ups, which is pretty cool. Some of them are pretty useful. So this actually ties back into what you were talking about, Lobos, about falling and using a horseshoe for that. Eventually, one of the vaults you open will actually make it so if you fall in the water, that won't take a horseshoe, and also a much later one, if you fall off a cliff, it won't take a horseshoe.
Nice.
So there's a lot of things here where they add, call it like micro frustrations where you're like, I can deal with this, but I would love it if I didn't have to. And then by collecting some of these things,
you can eliminate those.
Yeah, you can eliminate that. So I love that. And we'll see later on, I'll get this rolling ability that allows you to go fast. So
nice.
Be on the lookout for that.
See, I like to think that I just I did a challenge run for my first playthrough, and I
love it.
No power ups because
no power up challenge run.
I generally I prefer more simplified gameplay, and I asked chat when I was playing. I was like, what am I going to get if I actually go out of my way and collect all these bottles? And I knew this is totally a aside, but I knew that I needed to finish the game before the podcast, and I didn't have a whole lot of time extra. But we managed to finish it, and I wanted just to make sure I could get through it. And they told me it gets you some power ups, some abilities, and I was like, okay, well, I'll try getting through it with the minimal, and then so we'll call it challenge run or something.
And there's only really like one ability that's useful. Well, call it two, is the roll, and then you can do a damage roll. And so a lot of them are kind of fun. Like you can do slow motion, you can do fast motion, but those make everything fast or everything slow. So it's not like the game moves slow, but slide moves quick or something. So just different ways to play the game. You're probably right. If you're just really looking for the crit path there, you don't really need these abilities at all.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now, I will say, at the bottom of the level, when you enter the level, you'll see three icons, and they're silhouetted. So you see a key, and then, of course, when you complete the level and you get the key, that will be filled in. There's a little vault. Again, when you open the vault, that'll get filled in. But the third one is a speedrun challenge.
Ooh.
And those were a lot of fun to do. And actually, I think for some of those, you almost need the roll ability, because the roll ability does make you go faster. But what I love about this is once you beat this level, by the way, I ended up with 100% at the end of this game, and we'll show a little bit of the video that they show you at the very, very end here. But when you beat a level with the speed run, you get to go back in and you can enable developer commentary. And I am so such a sucker for developer commentary,
Yeah.
And I wish more games would do this, because, again, these are early, kind of 20-year-old games, and they're working with different technology than what we have now. So it's always fun to hear about what are the problems that they're facing 20 years ago in game development there. So
yeah, sometimes there's just like one part of a level or idea that they had that just you wouldn't think of it, but it just causes the most problems, and they just go through so many headaches on. But yeah, that's so cool. I didn't because I didn't do any of those, so I didn't realize that. Nice.
Well, I'll try to a couple of the levels, they have some really interesting notes there, so I'll try to incorporate those as we see them. Nice. So, we'll take pauses for some of the developer commentary. But yeah, it was so much fun to listen to them and just learn more about the development of this game. Again, these are made with 30, 40 people at most there. And when they're writing their own rendering technology and everything. So
definitely.
Very cool.
Let's talk about the team, because we've got
let's do it.
We've got Bentley, who is like your very token nerd scientist kind of assistant man. He's a turtle with glasses, and I'm not sure. A nerd. Yeah, I'm not sure if he can open his eyes, but he's just like always squinting, and he's like, he talks like this. But he's everything he's talking. He's always talking to Sly about like, oh my gosh, Sly, what you're gonna do this? Are you crazy? And like and Sly's just like, yeah, I'll take care of it. I'll do this. But yeah, that's
I'm pretty sure because in the developer, there's a developer video and they show one of the developers speaking in Bentley's voice. So I think Bentley is voiced by a developer, and I so hope that developer was a programmer because it just seems like everything fits there.
It's so funny because, and I don't think this was necessarily a negative thing, but somebody when I was playing was like, it sounds like the voices are done by people in the studio, and I feel like that's very common back in the day, especially. It's like, we need. Can anybody do a gruff voice for this guy or this and that? And I'm like, yeah, I can do it. But yeah, that's funny.
I think that's the charm of it, though.
Of course.
It's so much fun to hear that stuff. Yeah. And for what it's worth, I actually thought the voice acting was pretty good. Yeah, like the Sly is kind of just like, he's kind of there's nothing special about Sly, whereas Murray actually we should talk about Murray, but Murray and Bentley do have a very distinct voice. So let's talk a little bit about Murray because you were talking about Bentley. Mm-hmm. Did you want to continue with him?
Sure. Yeah. Murray is a giant pink hippo. I believe he's a hippo.
Yeah, he's a hippo.
Yeah.
And apparently he doesn't wear pants. He wears a shirt with no pants.
Yeah. Well, I mean, animal games, so you never know. But wait, is Sly wearing pants?
Now I feel like this is a question we need to answer for everyone. Do people just not wear pants in this world?
Yeah, maybe not.
He's got a hat.
Maybe not. Yeah. Anyways, Murray is a giant pink hippo. He's kind of clumsy. He drives the van, and he's also pretty nerdy. There's some little when you're in between missions, you go back to kind of a hub, and you cycle through like you basically are in the middle of a room, and you rotate around, and you see different parts of the room. You can interact with Bentley. You can go to the map. And then there's almost always a spot where Murray's just hanging out, doing whatever. One of them, he's doing a paddle ball and just do, and you can press the button and he'll do like a different interaction. But and another one, he's just playing a handheld game thing. But that's Murray.
Funny thing about Murray is he desperately wants to be a spy like Sly Cooper. He's just not very good at it, and there's a couple times where. We can chat about this now because we don't see this in the video, but there's a sequence where you have to drive the car and you're Murray, and there's a sequence where Murray's trying to run up to get a key, and you have to basically shoot the enemies so they don't get him, and he's just like this tub of messed up misfortune.
They did a lot for his belly physics. I'll say that. He moves, and it takes 3 seconds for his belly to stop. They were very detailed on that.
Some good jiggle physics on that belly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he very much looks up to Sly. And then we'll talk about Sly next. Sly is, he's I don't think that he's got much of a personality. He's kind of like quiet, very, very meticulous. He has a lot of confidence in his own abilities, which goes back into Bentley saying, "Oh, you can't do this," and Sly's like, "Just watch me."
Yeah, exactly. He just tries to be smooth all the time. Yeah. Every encounter with what was her name, Carmelita Fox.
Yeah,
he's just hitting on her, and she's like, "No, I'm gonna put you in jail." And he's like,
"That's true. Like,
do you promise?" Like,
if James Bond were a raccoon,
exactly.
I think maybe this would be.
Yeah.
James, so let's talk a little bit about some of the levels here. Again, we're still in the very first episode, and some of the enemies that we've seen. Well, so I will say there's not a lot of enemies. Each of the world has probably 3 archetype of enemies, which is just okay because you learn how they work. So one just has a big mallet in the first world, and if you get hit by the mallet, of course you get flattened and die. Mm-hmm. There is one where there's a dude that's got some, don't call it alcohol, but sure seems like alcohol, and then he drinks it and then spews fire at you.
Right.
Of course, if you get hit by the fire, you die. And then there is, what is the other one?
The other one throws stars at you.
Throws stars, right.
But, and the thing is, all 3 of these are like the same walrus man model. And then they've got like different clothes on, but yeah. And there's another one that belly flops you. That's all he does.
Oh yeah, that's right. Belly flops you. And then I guess there is one that just patrols around with a light and so looks at you. Yeah, so I guess there's 5 here.
Yeah, and that one's like an octopus. Like it looks like a Cthulhu man almost.
It does look like a Cthulhu man.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. But
by the way, the one that belly flops you, he's got his he's got a red hat and it's tilted onto the sideways, like the brim is going to the left side or whatever. So it kind of just looks like, some 12-year-old kid on a skateboard or something.
He's wearing overalls too, so
he's wearing overalls. All right, so we made it to the first boss battle. It's called the Eye of the Storm. Lobos, why don't you walk me through how you kill this frog?
Yeah, so these are very like phase-based boss fights where they kind of introduce you mechanics piece by piece. And in some cases, there's some pattern learning, at least that I use to really nail down the fight. But it's this frog in a massive kind of top hat, and I don't remember his backstory again, but he's very like prim and proper, and he talks like this, and he's like, I'm a frog, and I'm going to take him out. And he bloats himself up and gets...
Yeah, because he eats a fly, and I think that powers him up.
Yeah. And the arena are these platforms that go around a center. There's like maybe 6 or 7 platforms, and you have to jump from platform to platform because there's water, and if you fall in the water, you die. And the whole time, the boss is trying to smash you by just jumping onto you, and he'll always jump to where you're standing, so you can kind of predict that way. And then after he jumps a certain amount of times, he de-bloats, gross, and you can smack him, which we didn't even talk about Sly's capabilities, but he's got I think they call it a staff? They call it staff? Or
I don't know. Don't
it looks
ask me
like
what
a
they call
sickle, like kind of, it's got like a giant fishing hook almost.
Yeah.
But he swings it basically like a staff. And so once you hit him once, then like the pattern kind of updates, and then you have to, all the platforms but one like disappear, and you have to dodge him on the one platform. And then the next time, like I can't remember, he just bounces more times, and then the next time it's a single platform again, but then he does this tongue spin. So it's just kind of like, the first time he did the tongue spin, I wasn't expecting it, and he killed me in one hit, and I was like, oh,
knocks
okay,
you off, yep.
I get it. All right. And so then you just kind of redo the fight until to learn it all the way.
Know what was weird is they do have these electrical lines that are flying all around, and I know that
I saw that,
like catch them on it or something like that. I'm thinking why are there electrical lines there? That doesn't make sense. It does look like it's part of the fight.
Yeah, I don't know. I always overthink things. So like when the answer is just wait for him to stop and hit him, I'm like, okay, there's live wires over here. So if I jump into it and bait him to jump into this, then he'll get electrocuted, stunned. Yeah. Then I can hit. No, don't do that. Just hit him. But I really like the boss fights in this. And you were saying they're
very simple.
Yeah, they're straightforward. Just kind of like you build up the skill and then you succeed, and they're not too hard. And you were saying how there's not many enemy types, and that's true. But you're never like, I never really got bored of them because a lot of the gameplay is like traversing the levels and figuring out like how to get the power up in this corner, or where you can climb, where you can bounce off, or things like that.
Yeah. So yeah, agreed. I think each of the level may only have a good half dozen enemies actually in there to kill them. So yeah, like you said, a lot of it is trying to find the different glass jars that you can break open to get the little codes. And actually, one of the things that you can unlock on those vaults is the ability for your binoculars to actually find items in the world. Ooh. And so that's kind of handy. Is when you get that, then you can go back to the previous worlds and say, hey, where did I miss these bottles? Because it kind of highlights them when you look through them. So that was cool. Nice. Well, we just finished the first episode. And we left the frog dude. The frog's still alive. Don't worry about him. But he's in prison now because Carmelita gets to the crime scene and Sly is gone. But Carmelita manages to pick up the toad guy and bring him to prison.
It's so funny because Carmelita is super convinced that Sly is just a horrible thief that's stealing from, good people and all this.
Yeah.
When Sly is just taking care of these baddies, he leaves them behind. Carmelita shows up and she's like, well, I guess I'll arrest this dude. And then, continues looking for Sly. So
that'll even extend all the way to the end of the game as well.
Yep.
So this one is, each of these episodes are really well thought out different themes. So that first one was all kind of on, shipwreck stuff, oceans, and now we are in Vegas. This one's called Snake Eyes, and I think the villain here is the junkyard dog, and he's got kind of a sad story. He was like the runt of the litter. And he was picked on as a kid. And they show him with a lollipop and kids like kicking dirt on him.
Like a beanie, I think.
Then, yeah. And then he like gets swole. He finds weights. Actually, no, he watched the Dog Father, I think was the movie he watched, right? Father. And he's like, oh yeah, I should do that. And so he like starts lifting weights. And he's like really big. And he goes and like punches those guys.
Yeah. Got to take his revenge
everything
on the people that picked on him, and then after that, revenge against the world or something.
Yeah, he's got a casino here, and so much of this level is really themed like a casino. There's not slot machines, but there's roulette tables. There are slot machines. Yeah, we just saw that.
And some of them you can.
There's
destroy
roulette tables. Oh, you can
play them though. So these are static, but then there are some that are like lit up. And then you can hit those, and they'll just explode into coins.
Okay, nice. What else is there? Did they have? There is. So one of the enemies there, he throws a kind of a deck of cards at you, and you gotta, of course, jump over those.
These are all dogs. Things
they're dogs. Yeah.
Like
they're tied up though, which is brilliant.
Are they?
Oh, well, okay, so there's dogs with bones that are on the ground.
Oh, those dogs. Yeah.
Those, yeah.
Gotcha.
And then there's also upright dogs in the casino.
Right. Like, that's more of a dog. And then there's dog people. Like, there's a Doberman in a suit wearing sunglasses who's obviously a bodyguard dude. I mean, what else dog would you have as a bodyguard? Security.
There's that photo of dogs playing poker, right? It's kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like that, actually.
So going back, I wanted to talk about that little dog that, the actual dog, because he's tied up to a stake, and so he'll run up to you, and then once he hits his limit, he'll like spring back there. Yeah. And I just love that.
Yeah.
And that gives you an opportunity to go in there and kill the poor dog there. Oh, so yeah, here's the one throwing cards at you.
He looks like
so
Goofy.
Very well themed here. Some roulette tables. Again,
I liked this area. This was cool because the casino's like flooded, and you're jumping from table to table, or roulette table to poker table to craps table, and it gets increasingly harder. They put these I guess one
laser grids.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, just kind of backing up on that, one mechanic that they introduce is that there's security lasers all over the place that if you get detected, then they're like active and they turn from yellow to orange, and then if you get detected,
they move quicker.
Yeah, right? They move quicker usually, and if you get detected again, then they will actually damage you, and with most of the time being one shot, you would just die. So you have to you kind of get two chances to be sneaky all the way through that. And there's also segments. The levels are like segmented, kind of by these security sections, and at the end there's always like this klaxon, this these horns that if you get detected, they're going off. And then as you reach the end of the section, you can destroy the klaxon and
it'll disable the alarms, and it'll also disable any security grid that it's attached to.
Yeah, very true. So that lets you go back in case there was like items that were tough to get, but now all the security stuff's disabled and you can pick it up.
At the very end of that level, they had a very cool mechanic, which was this giant roulette table. And the way you're supposed to unlock the key, because it's behind this glass case, is you need to stand on a very specific slot on the roulette table 3 times. Each time it moves a little bit. And it spins so quickly, you can only jump the counterclockwise. So if you miss it, you have to kind of go around the entire roulette table again to try to hit it again. And what's really funny though is if you have the roll ability, you can actually roll faster than it spins. So I actually use that in the speed run because it takes too long for you that the whole table to spin around. So you just kind of you just roll around, and that is much quicker. And then one other thing that was in the developer commentary that you kind of touched on here was the increasing difficulty on those roulette tables that were spinning. It's the first time you just have to jump on the spinning roulette table. Second time there's a laser grid on the ground, and then the third time there's a laser grid on the ground and a laser grid kind of perpendicular to it, so you can't just ride it around or you're going to get hit.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the things that they talk about is the +1 mechanic, which is basically introduce the game or the mechanic to the player in a way that's safe, ramp up the difficulty, +1 it, and then ramp it up again to another +1. So by the time they're hitting that third +1, they've mastered that mechanic, and now it's, they have different mechanics later on top of that.
Yeah.
So they, just kind of looking at the game and remembering how so much of that game is that.
Yeah.
You go back to really what you're talking about. This is the well-polished design, and I think that's what helps that feeling there, is that feeling of progression where you're like, hey, this was very fair. I learned the mechanic and you're able to solve this, as opposed to situations where you just have all this stuff coming in at once and you're kind of blindsided.
Yeah, and I love that. Like it's very when you're playing it, it's very obvious that it's a game, right? That's how it's set up, but it's also, it's straightforward, and you expect that. You learn to expect that, and then you go, okay, what are they going to do next, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, they're very fun.
Very fun.
We also did not mention that upon defeating the frog villain, we recovered 1 page of the Thievius Raccoonus, which gives us a new ability that when you're jumping, well, there are specific small, like, spots that you can jump to that if you were trying to jump to it, it would be really hard to land on because it's just such a small area. But they give you a new ability when you're jumping towards one of these areas. You can hit the triangle button, and he'll do a little spin and kind of auto home and land on this, like, if it's a skinny pillar or just like the top of a flagpole or something. It makes it easy to traverse these small jump points.
Yeah, they're indicated by a little blue thing. We're looking at that right now. They have a little blue sparkly thing on it there. And what's really interesting is you see, if you've ever played Infamous.
I haven't actually.
Okay. Well, so Infamous actually really honed the craft, and you can really see where this came from, because Infamous was very infamous for the ability of, like, I'm on top of this 10-story building and I want to jump on that light post, and it's so easy to nail that. Nice. And they just you can see that all the stuff going on behind the scenes to make it sure that the player is perfectly lining up to land that jump. It just feels so good when you're able to do that.
Right, yeah.
So it's great to see the pedigree of developers. If you haven't played their earlier stuff, you're like, oh man, these mechanics are less refined, but the root of them comes from here. So good, good call out on the new ability, because again, that's the whole reason we're doing this is there's that Thievius Raccoonus manual that we're trying to pick up, and we completely forgot that, we got that ability.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, so it's easy to...
There's a lot to talk about,
anything to fall to the wayside.
We also just completed a level. I think there's 3 or 4 of these throughout the game. They are essentially Carmelita is firing at you, and you just have to get through the level. And it's kind of just you just have to keep moving forward, and it's pretty easy, because she just keeps moving, so you don't have to fight her, and it's generally she shoots at where you are, not where you're gonna be. So as long as you keep moving, you're generally pretty okay.
I think this one was the easiest, because you are going from building the top of a building to another top of a building, and she's just kind of shooting at you. But then the later ones, she'll start to, like, destroy platforms that you're on, so you actually have to just keep moving forward. Otherwise you can't, like, double back in order to dodge, so it gets harder as it goes.
And I will say the one that we just did, it's not 2D, but it's sort of like that 2D runner style thing, right?
Yeah.
And in the developer commentary, they had commented that they were getting flack from, I think, some of the execs being like, this is a 3D game, not a 2D game. Why do we have this level? So,
interesting.
but I'm glad they had that level. I think the variety in this type of game is really what makes it fun.
Yeah, I ran into some, I wouldn't say issues necessarily, but I would fail to properly control a character in some cases when they did the 2D thing, because what they do is your movement is like always relative to the screen camera. So like if it rotates, if it auto rotates on its own, you have to adjust. And it's not like tank controls where you could keep holding and he would keep going in the whatever direction he's facing. So you have to like kind of adjust that on the fly. And there is a lot of auto camera movement, which messed with me a bit. But, I'm used to having full control, for example, for Dark Souls or whatever, everything's up to you mostly, unless you're using like auto wall recovery. But I got used to it well enough and kind of,
and then you couple that with trying to mentally remember that you have to move your camera backwards from the way you think you have to.
Right.
It can become stressful.
Yeah. Oh man,
this
boss fight is cool.
Yeah, this boss fight against the junkyard dog. I really hope that's his name because I keep calling him that.
I think they have names.
This is I think the weakest fight of them all because I didn't really understand what you were doing. So it's 3 tiers. By the way, for all these boss fights, if you lose any of the phases, you basically have to start all the way over.
Yep.
So this one,
pretty
you
brutal.
start at the bottom and there's these mirrors and you have to smack the mirror and the mirror will then cause light to go on, I don't know, the center of the room or the dog, the boss or whatever. Did you figure out why that hurts them or upsets him? Because then he throws his guns. He's like, I don't want these anymore.
I think you like focus the light on his guns and then they overheat or something.
Oh, is that what that is? Okay.
That was the best I could come up with. But
that's good.
Yeah, I was having a really tough time with this at first because there's like these crystals around the room that like use to focus the light. And you can, if you're ever in line of sight of him, he will raise both guns and then shoot a flurry at you that move pretty quickly. And at first, I thought the only way you could dodge it was being out of, using these crystals in the room to block the shots. So I was being very particular. I was baiting him in very certain ways to like, okay, he'll shoot there. That'll give me time to run to this next crystal and then do this. But then after like 2 attempts, I learned you can just kind of jump over them. And then I was like, now it's very easy. It's interesting.
The second phase is very much like the first phase. But the third phase is a little weird because there's ropes you have to jump on.
Yep.
And so it's just a little tricky to jump around while not getting shot.
Yeah, use that new ability where you have to land on a particular point. So every time you jump, you have to make sure to hit that like lock on ability. Because I forgot that once, and you just fall and die, and like, dang it. And then you have to start the whole fight over again. But the only thing to that fight was at that point he doesn't shoot you that I could tell. You have to hit these. You have to spin these mirrors that are around him. It's a big circular kind of almost chandelier type thing you're on. And you spin the mirrors so that they face him and eventually focus all of the light on him. But once you spin it once, he'll like shoot them and spin them back. So you have to just make sure that they're facing him before you move on to the next. But that once you got there, as long as you did the jumping okay, it was pretty easy.
And you captured the baddie for episode 2, and each of the baddies, when you knock them out, they spill the beans about the next person. We have learned about, there's a lot of rats in here, I'll tell you that. But we are on episode 3. It's called Vicious Voodoo. This is, you're kind of in this, I call it like the swamps of Louisiana is what it looks like to me.
Yeah, it's very bayou.
Yeah, very bayou. And there is a crocodile. I don't remember her name, but her whole backstory is kind of dark. She didn't have any friends, so she just reanimated the dead animals that she found and made them her friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's one way to go about it, you know.
That's pragmatic, that's for sure.
Certainly. So I've got names here. First boss, the
perfect.
frog was Raleigh. I remember that. And then The junkyard dog was Mugshot.
Mugshot.
And then the crocodile we're coming up on is Ms. Ruby.
Yeah, Ms. Ruby.
Ms. Ruby.
Can't wait to talk about her boss battle because it's one of the more interesting, the frustrated ones here. So what's the, we got the second page of the Thievius Raccoonus manual here. What did we get here, Lobos?
Well, this next world has a lot of rails. You could think of kind of like a roller coaster rail.
I hate it when games are on rails.
Yeah, I get it. But yeah, you can use your now spin jump that locks you onto a particular spot to lock onto a rail, and if they're steep, then you'll slide, or if they're just kind of horizontal, flat, you can just run along them, and the game will auto path you along the railing. So there's a lot of that in this world, and for the rest of the game, really.
Yep. Yeah, they'll take the mechanics for each of the world, and they will all compound. So by the time you get to the last world, you really need to have mastery of all those mechanics that they've added here. Yeah, there is a new type of enemy here. This is a ghost, and these ghosts are spawned by these what would you call them, like little totems or something?
Yeah, they're like
gravestones.
They're almost like gravestones. Yeah, they're tall. They're
so those are like endless enemies,
almost like
monoliths. There's also these they're like tree folk, but it's really weird because when you hit one of the tree folk, it like the top of a head pops off and then turns into some sort of frog, and that attacks you.
Yeah.
And do you figure out what was going on there?
Yeah, so they take it's like a big like lumbering tree kind of golem thing, and you hit the face and the face falls off, but the face is its own thing. And the main body kind of gets stunned for a second while the face is doing stuff. And you have to kill the face, and then you can hit the body one more time to kill the body.
Okay, I didn't know if you could figure out like, oh, that's the everyone knows about the Peruvian tree frog.
No, no, I don't know that that's based on an actual creature, but you never know.
Okay,
you never know.
Maybe it goes back into the whole voodoo thing. Maybe it's like some reanimated frog tree thing. I don't know. So we are on this other level here. I forgot the name of this. I didn't catch it, but I think what's important here is there's a giant sea serpent in this level that will be chasing us. Oh, I think we missed it, so I want to call it out in case we did, or we may see it here. One of the levels, Bentley, you go in there, and to the left there is a waterfall, and Bentley's like, they've got body parts, and I don't know if you remember that one.
Yep. They pointed out.
So actually in the developer commentary, by the way, they bleep out words of like movies and stuff, so they'll say like so and so was a reference, but they bleep out the actual reference. It's a little weird. Okay. But you can hear like the first letter, and I'm pretty sure they said Conan, and that makes sense. Really? They wanted if you remember, Conan the Barbarian has that sequence where they have got like the hands and the whatever in the green soup, and they're feeding that the children of whatever. Yeah, so it was an inspiration there, so very cool to see that.
Interesting.
Now we've got this big sea serpent that's swimming along under us. It really just makes us go quickly. We don't have to fight it or anything. You get to the end of the key and it just kind of goes away, but it's a little bit of a frantic moment. You're talking about the camera shifting because you're not running towards the camera.
Right. On this level, it wasn't so bad because you're jumping and then you're locking onto these rails, so you don't have to precision jump too much. But the overall vibe of that level was pretty creepy, like, because the music in this area is a little like haunting. And then on top of that, like they mention, I think Bentley points out or something that there's something lurking in the water. Yeah. And you see telltale signs of it, and you're like, oh, what's it gonna be? And then this is just kind of a running sequence at the end. It's not too bad, but it was cool.
This is the level, the level with the so you can see the body parts of the green waterfalls there. So pretty cool that we were able to see that as well. And then it also there's a couple other mechanics here. We learned that occasionally these candles will allow you to unlock other pathways. So I think there are skulls with candles on them, and when you smack them, they will sometimes open up a log that allows you to cross safely. And I think later on there's a scenario, it might be this level, where you have to smack all the candles to actually unlock the key.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's like it dispels a curse, and then that allows you to, it takes down a barrier that you can now move through.
Yeah, that's right. It's a curse. Yeah.
We didn't talk about. Here's some. I was gonna say we didn't talk about all of like Sly Cooper's like ability kit. Because he is like a spy, so he's got some sneaky things. You can shimmy along a wall by holding, I think, triangle it was, and then there are.
By the way, when he does that, I love the little sound effects.
Yes, it's so good. We didn't talk about the audio, but there's some really cool things there. You can also swing from hooks. There's all sorts of different hooks that you can grab onto. You have to hit like basically the button as you were approaching it, so you hook onto it, and then you can jump from there, or you can sit there and swing and build momentum. One of the things that really threw me off was the quote unquote, I'm going to quote unquote it, double jump in this game. Yeah. Because it's there. There is a double jump, but regardless of when you hit the second jump, he'll do a little flip. And if you don't time it such that your second jump is at the apex of his jump, you won't really see much of a benefit. It's more of like a jump extender kind of that'll get you some more distance, rather than a whole extra, doubles your height kind of jump. So at first, the first time they introduced to you, there's a cliff, and you're at the bottom of this cliff, and he's like, press the double jump to jump up there. And I just kept pressing it, and nothing was happening. And I eventually,
this is a double jump,
barely just kind of glitched up into it. And I was like, okay, is my playthrough broken? Is my game broken? But no, it's a very tightly timed double jump.
Yeah. It's kind of like a jump and a half, right? Not really a double jump.
Yeah, it's less than that even. It's like jump in a fifth or something. It just extends it so you can get a bit more distance and reach like the next hook.
Just a little bit. It's not really significant. Yeah. Well, how about some rhythm games here? We've got Miss Ruby, and this one took me probably 4 or 5 tries because, again, if you fail one of these inputs, you die, right?
Yep.
Is it?
Yeah, it was. If
you got to do all of it again.
Mistime it or press the wrong button, then start all the way from the beginning. And this is 4 phases, I think, that just get faster and faster and harder and harder, more complex. But I had a lot of fun with it.
I like the framing of the sequence. You're basically slowly moving towards Miss Ruby, and so she's just throwing things at you. And I just like the idea of this, like, you can see you're getting closer. You just got to keep hitting those buttons.
Yeah, it almost incites some panic, though, when you're like, I'm almost there. Yeah. I'm almost there. I just got to get it right.
Well, this part actually is, you can see she's very frantic because she's just kind of like throwing musical notes at you as quickly as possible. Well, so I love that.
And the coolest thing I liked was you end up using all the face buttons, so square, triangle, circle, and X or cross, whatever you want to say. Yeah. But then whenever you press, so the square, circle, and triangle are all dodges in the appropriate direction, like left, right, or I think you duck for triangle. But then whenever you press X or cross, it's always a jump for him because that's actually the jump button. So he's always like jumping up to the next thing, but only if you ever press cross in the song. So I liked that it like lined up that way.
Very cool.
You weren't just pressing the button because they told you to.
Right. And actually, I think around that time I got fed up with my controller because I'm like, why does it seem like I have to hit this circle button 3 or 4 times for it to register? And sure enough, I went out and I did some, I cleaned under the contacts there, and I, because contacts of the controller has like graphite there, and you want to like rub a little bit of that off because sometimes it gets a little shiny and doesn't quite connect there. Anyway, so after I cleaned that like fixed it 100%. I'm like, well, look at that, finding problems and fixing it.
Nice.
And I'm like, I knew I was hitting those reliably. I just wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't actually doing the action there.
Yeah.
Which was sometimes challenging because again, we're talking about when you jump and you have to land on that little spot or you'll die. If you don't register, if it doesn't pick up that button, you'll just fall. I'm like, why does it seem like I keep falling? So
yeah.
All right, we are on the fourth. This is like the fourth and last main hub here. So who are we fighting here?
We're seeking out the Panda King, who has I really liked this backstory. He comes from poverty, and he fell in love with fireworks, and this is all
as one does, right?
Right, of course. And so he started designing his own fireworks, and he makes them, and then he shows them off his all the work he's put in, and they just kind of toss him aside because he's poor and they don't care about his fireworks. And then of course he has to take it extremely personally, and then he has to use his fireworks to get his revenge. And
causing an avalanche to knock out a whole city.
The level starts off with him launching a firework into a mountain, and then the avalanche is over an entire village. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is intense. Yeah. And the new ability that we acquired from Ms. Ruby, I believe, is the ability to go invisible entirely.
Yeah.
If you're standing still, you hold circle, and Sly becomes transparent. And if there's anybody like looking with a flashlight or a security laser, they just won't detect you, which is super handy and very cool.
There is a upgraded version of that, and you can slowly walk, but it's real slow. It's not very significant there.
Interesting.
So you'd think that in the speed runs that might be useful, but I usually found that there's better ways to get around than trying to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the walking stealth thing I maybe used like once or twice. It's not going to change the way you play.
Sure.
But this level here, they tell you is a training ground, which is it certainly is. There's a lot of laser grids. There's a lot of hooks you can hang on, and then you use your momentum to go from hook to hook. Again, I really like this. I guess later on we'll see there's a bunch of people that are doing martial arts moves. Yep. So presumably this is a ninja training ground.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out. So we're in this area right now with eight of these guys all on totems. They're basically balancing and doing nunchucks.
Yep.
And I thought that they were going to be coming down and trying to fight me, but it's 100% decoration.
Yeah, me too. I was expecting that. And I did eventually, after I think I fell at some point and restarted this section, and I attacked one once, and they kind of wobble. The whole totem pole wobbles, and then they recatch their balance. But they can hit you, because I missed a jump once, and they actually, because they're just swinging in the air. They're training, not trying to hit you, but if you run into them, they'll hit you, and they knock you up, and it's funny. But yeah,
I didn't realize they had collision on them. I thought that was just decoration.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
cool.
a lot of hook jumping, and they kind of test all of your skills, because it's pretty late game, so they have you doing a lot of you're shimmying along a wall, but you got to wait because there's a gorilla that's got a flashlight, and he's looking down. He's above you, and he's looking down the wall, but then he looks up, and then when he looks up, you can shimmy across. Skip past his flashlight or lasers or whatever. But testing all your abilities at this point.
This is the unseen foe, the first level that we actually have to use the new ability we got, which was go invisible. Oh, you can see him actually walking across here. But this is kind of cool. There's a scene where. So most of the time, the guards, when they have their flashlights, they're moving around. So you kind of time them. Think Metal Gear Solid or anything that has AI that moves around. But this guard was just standing idle, and so but there's a conveyor belt. So the intent is, hey, jump on the conveyor belt, use your ability to remain idle, and then the conveyor belt will put you right up next to that guy, and then you can just smack him in the head and kill him.
Yeah, cool way to take. I don't know. It's a cool just design for how the mechanic works. You can only be invisible if you're standing still, but if you're standing still on a moving object, it's moving for you. And then, very cool.
And then here's the opposite thing. We now have a conveyor belt going against you. So you really have to kind of, and then a guard on the other side of that conveyor belt. Now, luckily, he's kind of looking from side to side.
Right.
So you can, you just have to time it there. But that's a fun one because if you don't risk it enough, you're going to end up losing ground.
Yeah.
On that conveyor belt. Now, at the very end of this level, I really like you go to this area that there's this almost like a Mission Impossible style drop where there's lasers all around. Actually, you see this in the first level as well, but we're going to get to it here in a second. And I just love the idea of that. It was a lot of fun to try to navigate these lasers. In fact, I really liked any of the puzzles that there was a bunch of lasers that were on the ground and you just had to figure out, where do I jump? Okay, now that I'm here, where do I quickly jump again?
Yeah, here's that section. It's just a very tall kind of like column building with lasers all over the place, but you can safely jump to ledges that work your way down. Wow, you skipped some there.
I just kind of got lucky on that there. That one's stressful during a speed run because if you hit one of those, it can be bad news there very quickly. Actually, the speed runs were pretty tightly timed. I think most of them I'd complete with like half a second to 1 second. Whoa. I think there was only like one or two where I completed with like 5 seconds because I found some pretty big skips there.
Nice.
But yeah, you have to be pretty on top of your game there, which I loved. This game was a lot of fun to speed run.
That's awesome. Actually, when I started playing, somebody in my chat had mentioned that only 6 days previous, a new speedrun world record was set.
Oh,
so
cool.
it's like, it's still active and people are running it a bunch. So
I'm curious if or what sort of time.
Yeah, it was like 26 minutes or something.
26 minutes.
Yeah, there's got to be some big skips. Some of these levels are the kind of level where they show you the end right at the beginning, but then you have to navigate a whole thing, and then you wind up there. But I could totally see, just getting there and skipping a whole bunch.
100%, yeah. There's another level we're on here with Carmelita is firing guns at us. Now, here's an interesting thing that I thought was a cool little addition or +1 is you've got these little columns that you're shimmying along, and Carmelita is, of course, shooting you, and you cannot progress because there's stuff in your way. So you have to just kind of shimmy along, and then Carmelita will shoot and hit the wall next to you, and that will actually destroy the barrier. So there's a little bit of, like actually needing her to help you progress there.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, when you're doing a speed run, of course, you were like, come on, Carmelita, you got to shoot faster. I got to get over here.
Right.
And also those ledges that you have the circle around where you have to press up against and shimmy across. You can generally just jump and warp as long as you're holding. So a lot of times you just like do a jump, get halfway through, and then jump again. So you don't really spend time shimmying across there.
Yeah, I figured it out pretty quick because there's some puzzles where you have to shimmy and there's like several things you have to shimmy by and then wait for the next one and then this and then the next one. But you could just like jump to like 3/4 of the way down the shimmy section and hit the shimmy button, and he'll just lock into it, and you can skip most of it that way. So nice little speed strats there.
Man, we are blasting through this level. Yep. We just completed, we just got all the keys here. And so, again, each of the levels has a bunch of padlocks, 7 padlocks. And once you get all the keys, you throw those all on some sort of object. This object happened to be a double rocket. And then you basically ride the rocket up to kill Kung Fu Panda here. I mean, honestly, that's who this looks like, right?
We need to bleep that in post, just like the developer.
Oh yeah, that's right. We can't have
So be bleep panda
beep
or
foo
something.
Beep. Yeah. But I mean, honestly, it's like a ringer for that. Actually, well, this game came well before that movie, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, this boss is this is another good example of the +1. You start out the first phase. He just does a sweep attack. And so you just have to jump over that. And then he'll bounce you back with his belly physics. And then you come up, and then he starts slamming down on the ground and then also doing the sweep. And for each one of his attacks, he'll do like the Street Fighter thing of like telling you the ability he's using.
Right, yeah.
So
yeah, he says the ability name, and and you start to. It's really cool though. I liked it because every ability is super simple in how you dodge it. Like the sweep one, you can just stand there and just jump, and then his overhead chop, you have to like run to the side, or you can just outrange it. And by the end of the fight, he's using all these abilities, and you learn the audio cues and just kind of dodge them appropriately. And it was fun. It was fun. I liked it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, man, what if they made a Dark Souls boss that was like that? Where it's like, here's one mechanic, and you learn that one mechanic, and then you do it too.
No, they need they have 17 abilities right off the bat, and they can use any of them.
And some of them they literally don't use for 3 hours. You're fighting a boss, and it's like, oh, I've never seen this ability before.
Yep. Yeah.
Anyway, so we have killed all 4 of the bosses here, and then we pick up a clue. They're like, hey, in all of these pictures I always see there's this mysterious owl creature in the background here. We're gonna see there is a 5th member here of this, I don't know, call it a syndicate.
Sure.
And so now there's a Murray just
Pantsless
Murray and Bentley, they make a great couple of goofballs there to really round out your party there. So yeah, you have all your abilities, and now you have to go kill the mysterious, don't call him Owl Man, but is basically some sort of owl creature. But
he's also like, I think he's mostly like robotic, right? Doesn't he have like a metal beak and all this stuff?
Yeah, it's basically like a robot owl.
And his name is Clockwork.
I'm not sure how that one fits, but all right. There's no like avian pun we can have there with.
I think there's a reference.
Okay,
there,
I'm gonna workshop something here. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Metal bird.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, I think let's call it Sucker Punch now. And
why don't she give me one?
The Hardened Flyer.
Yeah, those are much better names.
Yeah, perfect.
If you're wondering why we're wasting time here, it's because Murray is just driving us through this auto scroller level, and you basically are on a turret, and you just kind of kill some birds and some mines there. I think there's like 5 or 6 different sequences. I'm gonna skip over 1.5 of them here. And so as we chat about them, there's like some small things we actually miss. Actually, one of them is a level where you're shooting. You're doing another one of those sniper things where I think Carmelita is trying to go somewhere, and then you have to snipe the enemies or something.
This is after you rescue. So right now we're rescuing Carmelita by.
Oh, and then she goes right. Yeah.
This one's basically navigating past all the security things to reach Carmelita, who's been imprisoned, but it was all a bait to capture Sly as well. And so then I think. After this, I don't remember if it was during this that Sly loses his cane, his weapon, so he has to get his weapon back.
Yeah.
And during that, you are Carmelita kind of sniping and protecting him while he's running to regather his cane.
Thank you. I kind of mixed those up in my head. Yeah. But before that, so we went to go Carmelita, and the enemy Owl Man, or what would we call him, Hardened Falcon. Has injected gas into this chamber, and Bentley is like, well, I'm gonna help you out here, and so he does this little hacking mini game. It's real quick, don't even worry about it. So we hack it, and then we turn off the gas, and then Carmelita says, hey, she's very specific. She says, hey, hit the base of this thing to free me, and then we'll help out each other. So that's what's going on here. It's called a temporary truce, and this is what that level you're explaining to us, where you play as her.
Yes. Oh man,
I think this is the only level. Oh no, I guess you do with Murray as well. Sometimes you play as Murray, but I don't think you play as Bentley. No, I guess we just did play as Bentley.
We did play as Bentley. I think that's the only time.
You play with everyone.
Yeah. We skipped one level where it was. Oh man, it's frustrating. But you're driving the car around, and Murray is hack dropping computers from the sky.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And there's these like slime dudes they're just trying to eat the computers, and it's basically a race. You have to collect more than they destroy, and it's cars. car controls.
Whew, we're a bunch of like rapid fire. Again, most of these levels are about 5 minutes or less as you get to the end. In some ways, it reminds me of the end of a Mega Man, where it's just like, all right, you have a gauntlet of a bunch of random. Not that you've got all the tools you need. Here's just a gauntlet to prove that you can do all the stuff in quick succession here. So now we have another level there where there's lava that's rising up from the floor. And you just got to keep using traversal to get to the very top because you need to get Carmelita's jetpack, which I don't know how it got up to the top of the statue. We don't have time to answer questions.
No.
Don't worry about it. And so now we have it, and we're on the final boss here.
Yep.
We call this, what was his name? Iron Birdman?
Yes, Iron Birdman.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how does this fight work?
It's pretty straightforward. It's just kind of auto-flying, and in front of you, you can move Sly 2D up, down, left, right on the screen, but the boss is always in your view, so you don't have to worry about camera control really. The boss will shoot a flurry of purple energy balls at you, which are very easy to dodge. You just basically sidestep or whatever. And then Carmelita will shoot a part of...
Oh, that's Carmelita. For some reason, I thought it was Murray. I don't know.
Oh,
okay, that makes so
no,
much
I'm pretty
more
sure it's
sense.
Carmelita using
her
stun gun or whatever, and she'll hit one part of the Iron Birdman, and it'll kind of look electrified. And at that point, you can shoot it to deal damage to the boss. And that's the first phase. The second phase is the same thing, except that Birdman is launching these rings, it's a really cool effect where it's like, really cool. It's coming there. He shoots this ring.
Mode 7, baby.
Yeah, it looks like Mode 7. It comes at the screen and like rotates in a really cool way, and you have to just make sure you're in between, like inside the circle. Otherwise, the outsides will zap you. And then it's the same thing. They'll shoot rings, and then a part gets electrified. You shoot it, and then the final section is he's damaged and weakened, and you drop down, and I think your jetpack breaks or something, and you just have to traverse your way all the way to the bird, going past all these security lasers and crazy stuff happening. And luckily I did this first try, but it was super hectic. There's just so much stuff going on.
There's a lot of stuff. I love it. It's really good.
I didn't even realize you could jump on top of the middle of those, because I was just dodging in between the lasers.
Things. And while he's flailing around in the lava, he's like saying random stuff. So I think that's just his chip is. So I don't know if he's like reading things from Thievius Raccoonus or what he's saying.
Yeah, I don't know. Like his whole thing
just
was
random
that
stuff.
Clockwork has existed for hundreds and hundreds of years, and his whole purpose is to get revenge on the Cooper family of thieves that's been, hounding him for centuries. And guess what? He fails again. But
no!
I'm sure he won't be back or anything. But I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I haven't played the others.
I don't know, but there's Sly Cooper 2 and 3. So.
There are, and 4. I heard there's a 4.
Oh, is there a 4th? Okay,
I heard that, but yeah.
Huh.
But anyways,
very cool game.
Yeah. Get the last. I actually don't know what the last page of the Thievius Raccoonus has. Did they say?
I don't remember. I think maybe they showed it there. Maybe it's doing voiceover right now. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of Carmelita never really letting go Sly for his crimes or perceived crimes.
Yeah.
And so there was a joke here when he first freed her that said like, hey, if I let you go, I'll give you like a 3-second head start or a 10-second head start.
Yep.
And sure enough, she shows up at the end of the game. Again, these are all comic book panel type things. And she's like, hey, you got 10 seconds. And what does Sly do with those 10 seconds?
He gives her a big fat kiss. And she's like, oh my goodness. And then he's gone. And then she's like, what? Dang it. And so, yeah. But
it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I feel like many games that play with romance in this way, they won't lead anywhere. There's never a kiss or anything. Yeah. They're just always this like, they could, but they didn't. This kind of tension. But he actually lands a kiss. And then
but he didn't just kiss her. What did he use that opportunity to do?
Oh, to steal a key. Wait, what was the key for?
He handcuffed her.
Oh, okay. That's right. He handcuffs her to the railing. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff.
So, gosh, what a fun game. I'm really glad it was recommended as a game we should play. because it just took that reminder of like, oh yeah, the Sly Cooper stuff exists. It was very fun. And I'll tell you what, I think we're gonna definitely have some conversations about best looking game come here in the game of the 2002 awards or deliberations coming up this year, because I got to say, like, over and over, I think this game looked phenomenal. And again, it's not high res, but it's just very, very stylistic. So it looks really great.
Yeah, it holds up so well. And there's like so many games, like, I don't want to say necessarily indie, but just kind of smaller project games that would envy to look as good as it does.
Oh, yeah.
Even today, 20 years later. Mm-hmm. So fantastic direction, like in just multiple ways on it.
So when you do beat it, Bentley says, hey, we're not actually done. The thing's not restored, and then you have to basically do everything, all 100% of everything. But also, what's really interesting is there's a sequence right now which is a Japanese version of Sly Cooper. Did you see this?
No,
Lobos?
I did not.
Okay, so I don't know how this plays, but it's like all voice acted in Japanese, so I don't know. I think it's the intro of Sly Cooper, but it's Japanese. I don't know.
Huh.
I didn't understand what it was, or maybe this was like an advert or something.
Huh.
But yeah, this played for me at the end of completing the game.
Huh.
I don't know why. So, and then of course I go through and actually what's interesting is the very last vault you cannot unlock until you've killed the owlbird, owlbird, whatever,
Clockwork,
stainless steel falcon. And when you get the last vault unlocked there, you get the ability to stun enemies. So there's a little bit of a charge up time. It takes about half a second to a second. Sly will spin his staff around, and then it goes ping, kind of bright light appears, and enemies will still aggro. Like if you go through their flashlight, you'll still hear the whistle, but they won't move and they won't attack you until they unfreeze. And so when you stun people, you have like maybe a second, 2 seconds to kind of get around them and kill them.
It's like a time stop or something.
Yeah, it's basically a time stop.
Nice.
And so I actually use those a couple times in the speed runs where it's like, hey, you have to wait for this guy to move. And you're like, no, I don't. I will stun him and then kill him. So.
Nice. Very cool.
So yeah, that's Sly Cooper in a nutshell. I'd be looking forward to playing future games in the series.
Yeah.
How did you get on with this, Lobos?
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I'm always apprehensive going into a stealth game. I was like, oh my gosh, how rough is this going to be? But no, it's super, accessible and again, just praising the designs in so many ways. We didn't even go into the audio, but the whole thing of like when you're close to an enemy, you're like sneaking, and every time he steps, it adds to the music, and it's like just kind of random doop 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 doop.
Yeah, it's really good.
Sort of thing. Very good.
Animation's really good too. Again, some of the developer commentary would talk about the animation where when he's doing that, he's kind of like when he's doing that stealth, he's kind of like leaning back and then tipping forward with his foot like one at a time.
Yeah.
Very cool to see that.
Good stuff.
Well, that is Sly Cooper. Of course, we got some other B-roll footage coming on here of various different parts, and I know at some point we'll probably get to the point of the actual developer video that plays. Actually, get to show some of the developers and talk about some of the stuff there. So that might be playing on in the background here. But we wanted to thank, of course, we have the Patreon screen, thanking everyone for supporting this episode and, all of 2022. We do get a new Patreon supporter this week. We wanted to welcome Dean Elborn to the group here. Yeah. And Dean had a very nice, heartfelt message that they sent in. And one of the thoughts was like, hey, it would be cool if on the Patreon chat or whatever there was like a thing where you could enter in questions like Q&A or things you'd like us to answer. So
that would be super cool.
We'll add that, and if people have things that they think they want to know about, like, hey, what's your favorite Dark Souls weapon, Lobos? Maybe we'll answer that.
Yeah.
So and of course, if you want to join the Patreon group there, you can always head on over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Gaming Show, or just go to our website, which is SaturdayMorningGamingShow.com, and it's got all the links that you'll ever need there.
Mm-hmm. So...
All right. Okay, hold on.
Oh.
before you get going, I know you're going to ask about the next game.
Yes.
And we need to choose the most perfect game here.
Ah, I see. So we, they don't have to wait too long to be in the dark on what we're going to play, right?
No.
Okay.
I think what other puns can we go with here? Is that all we got?
It's not that rare of a game.
It's not that rare of a game. Joanna.
Yes, Joanna Dark.
Joanna
Wait, dang
Dark.
it. That's her name.
We messed that one up.
Guns. Laptop gun.
Technology. Dynacorp.
Aliens. Spoilers.
Now you've gone too far.
That's gone too far.
We are going to be checking out Perfect Dark.
Wait, I thought we were doing Banjo-Kazooie. I'm just kidding. Perfect Dark.
Perfect Dark on the N64. So this one, of course, everyone being me, likes to think of this as the spiritual successor to GoldenEye.
Right.
And playing it, it's literally the same game. Like, you see
it was
the same
going
animations.
to be, right? And then I think they didn't have the license for Bond. So they're like, well, let's make it
Perfect
something
Dark.
else then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So bust out your expansion packs.
Yes, Actually, I would post it on the Discord. It cracked me up when I saw the manual. It's like, hey, you can play 37% of the game you just purchased if you don't have the expansion pack. And there's a grid that's like literally here's what you can do, and it's like you can pretty much do nothing.
Yeah,
you
none of the campaign, which was just oh my gosh, horrible. But
it's pretty amazing.
I'm excited.
And I got the Rumble pack also.
Nice.
Make sure to put that Rumble slap that Rumble pack in your controller and get going because it's got some Rumble there as well.
Indeed.
So we're gonna be checking a look at Perfect Dark on the N64 in September. But sadly, we have reached the end credits of this episode and really wanted to thank everyone for listening to us on the podcast or watching us on YouTube.
Yep, we do new podcasts monthly, so be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or Google or Apple. Oh, that's iTunes, never mind. Whatever you want to listen to us on, okay? And absolutely check out SaturdayMorningGamingShow.com. You can find a whole bunch of updates there as well as the episodes posted. And if you have feedback, you can also provide that at SaturdayMorningGamingShow.com, the contact form, or if you want to, you can send an email, SaturdayMorningGamingShow@gmail.com.
Or you can always just go to Lobos' channel and be like, hey, stupid streamer, your podcast sucks. And this is the reason why.
You can totally do that. And
I want to see lots of that. Hey, and you mentioned we release a new podcast monthly, but occasionally we have a bonus episode of Retro Oddities, and this month, in the month of August, we have Eternal Ring.
See, I missed out on that. I got to go listen to that because I got to see what you guys said about it.
It's funny. There's some weird stuff in that game, and Shane and I call it out. There's a little baby.
Oh, that game is.
How often do I have to tell you? I don't know what does he say? I can't understand what I can't understand.
Exactly. Yep.
I'm sure you've heard that over and over, being the world record holder.
Yeah,
it's a cutscene you can't skip.
All right.
It's the worst.
So good.
All right. Anyway, let's see what else we have here. Oh yeah, and of course, if you're listening to us on a platform that allows you to rate us, please go ahead and give us a thumbs up or whatever there are, like stormy clouds,
stars, or firecracker, I don't know.
Iron Falcons, or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And then, of course, one special shout out to TechnoAxe for much of the music on this episode.
For Saturday Morning Gaming Show, I'm Lobos.
And I'm the Fat Wizard. We'll see you in September with Perfect Dark for the N64.
And I'm Bentley.